That's the advice I can give you. Take
right.
the Uber. You know who doesn't have to Uber?
Who?
Thomas Brown. I don't think the offensive coordinator for Chicago Bears that's been all over college football in his past.
He's paid his dues.
With the Rams. He's paid his dues. He's been with Carolina. Finds himself here with the Chicago Bears in the enviable task. I believe there's people out there that love to coach, and I think it is the enviable task of being the offensive coordinator in emergency for the Chicago Bears. And the relationship between he and Caleb Williams seems to be a compatible situation. They seem to be simpatico. They seem to be kind of feeding off each other and finding a way for this team to be somewhat successful. And if we look at the next 5 games and the offense turns to beat around and they start putting 25-plus points up in every single game, is there an absolute consideration that needs to be made about Thomas Brown becoming part of the staff? And I've been parts of coaching changes where both Dick Duran and Greg Blasch stayed on the defensive side of the football with the Green Bay Packers. So it's not like it's never happened before. If you've got a quality coach that the guy interviews him, likes what he sees, and he ends up keeping a coach.
I would only answer it this way. If they hire someone like Vrabel, maybe. If they hire an offensive coach, I can't imagine Thomas Brown stays here. But if they hire Mike Vrabel and Thomas Brown and this offense continue to do better things, and I don't know why Vrabel probably has no connection whatsoever, at least not that I'm aware of.
Does Andy Reid still call plays?
Yes.
So the whole, what's his name, the former coach here,
Matt
he's
Nagy.
not doing, Matt Nagy's not calling any plays.
Andy Reid calls the plays.
Matt Nagy's got the sheet. He gets behind it and makes it look like he's doing it, but he's talking to himself is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Ben Johnson, as a head coach, would still want to call plays.
Absolutely.
That's what you're telling me.
100%. Why would
The coach down in Dallas, he calls the plays.
Mike McCarthy does call the plays.
McCarthy does call the plays. So if you do get...
Mike McDaniel calls the plays.
Right.
Kyle Shanahan calls the plays. Matt LaFleur calls the plays. Sean McVay calls the plays.
What you're telling me then is if you hire a defensive coach, the odds are the defensive coach is going to want to maybe keep Thomas Brown.
That I could see, but not if you hire an offensive coach. Could you imagine that? Can you imagine hiring Ben Johnson
and telling him not to call plays?
Yeah. No way. No way. That's the reason you're getting Ben Johnson. Like, you believe in his ability as a play caller and what they do. If you had Matt LaFleur, would you tell him he can't call plays? Of course not. If you had Sean McVay.
You're still going to have an offense coordinator.
That's true, but...
You'll still have an offense coordinator, but Thomas Brown in that situation wouldn't be calling the plays.
I find it hard to believe, and that he'd want to even stick around on the staff after that. If he does well, the best thing for Thomas Brown is he's going to continue to open the eyes of other people around the league. He's already interviewed for a couple of jobs. If he does well here, somebody's going to say, look, Thomas Brown can call plays.
And he's 30, how old is he, 38?
That sounds about right.
I think he's about 38 years old, if I had to guess.
You know, he had
38 years old, Carm.
He had a knee injury, right? Or he had an injury coming out of college. Played football at Georgia, had an injury, didn't really have much more than a cup of coffee, if I'm not mistaken, as a player in the NFL. Very brief. And he went right into coaching. He went back to Georgia, and he was on the strength and conditioning staff. Then he went to Chattanooga for a year. Then he went to Marshall, Wisconsin, and back to Georgia, all in like a 4-year span, York, as a running backs coach. Then his guy, he played for, what was his name, York? The old coach. Oh, come on, Carm.
Chris.
No. The coach at Georgia who went on to coach Miami. At the U. Come on, I'm looking right at him.
I can't recall his name. College football is not my forte.
Mark Richt. Mark Richt.
I said Chris, but Mark Richt.
Mark
You're
Richt.
right.
He played for Mark Richt. When Mark Richt came back and went to Miami, he joined Mark Richt's staff. Then he went to South Carolina for a year. Then McVay hired him. He spent like 3 years with McVay. Then he went with Reich to Carolina. So the young man has really hit the ground. Like when his career was over, and again, I think he had an injury, if I'm not mistaken, coming out of Georgia.
He's well-traveled.
He is well-traveled, and he's been around. And he's coached in a lot of places, and he's done a lot of different things to not even be 40 years old yet. So if this goes well for the next 6 weeks, it's good for Thomas Brown. Maybe he calls plays somewhere else next year. He's on the path to be a head coach somewhere someday if this continues. You hear the way he speaks. He seems to have a presence about him, which is important. He played the game at a high level. He's paid his dues as a coach. Now he's putting good stuff on film with what he's doing. So good for Thomas Brown. I just don't think his future ultimately is here, because I think the Bears are going to change coaches, but it's good for him.
And it looks like he had a torn ACL against Vanderbilt
That's what
in
I
his
thought he hurt his knee.
collegiate campaign. Yeah, in his collegiate campaign. Then he went in, was horse-collared when he was with the Atlanta Falcons, and received an injury there and ended up getting placed on injured reserve.
There you
so
go.
that's how it happened.
Very brief cup of coffee as a player.
It's something to monitor and just something to watch, and it's something to be aware of as you start moving forward.